The Holland Tunnel opened in 1927 as the first vehicle passageway connecting Manhattan with New Jersey. Crossing underneath the Hudson River, the tunnel was the longest underwater tube for vehicles and was the first one built with a ventilation system. On that first day, more than 50,000 vehicles drove through the tunnel for a toll of just 50 cents. The plan was designed by Chief Engineer Clifford Holland and called for twin tubes with 2 lanes of one-way traffic. Costing $48.5 million in 7 years to build, the north and south tubes extend about 1.6 miles, with each being 29 feet in diameter. The depth of the tunnel reaches 93 feet, and almost a mile of the tunnel is located beneath the surface. New York culture in the 20s revolved around the factories producing goods. The freight had to be loaded onto ferries. The congested piers were at a standstill. Corruption was rampant between criminals and racketeers transporting these goods. The Hudson River froze in the winter of 1918 for several days, obstructing ferry passage and making it almost impossible for food to reach Manhattan. There was the risk that people could starve to death. The next year, there was a maritime strike that brought ferry traffic along the Hudson to a halt. All of this underscored the need for the tunnel. The digging system used caisson technology. An air pressurized chamber was lowered into the ground, and from there, workmen employed boring shields. With 3 shifts of 45 to 55 men, they advanced 40 feet per day. As sections were dug, they would be secured with steel rings, then covered by a 19-inch thick layer of concrete. 129,400 cubic yards of concrete were used, and over 6 million tiles were installed. The men excavated 404,000 cubic yards of mud, sand, and stone. This material was hand-shoveled into small cars and exited the tunnel. Employing up to 1,000 European and West Indian immigrants per day, the men were known as sandhogs. The labor was hard as there was a fear of accidents and the lurking danger of caisson's disease or the bends due to depressurization. For air, each tunnel was connected to ventilation shafts, which were attached to 4 above-ground towers. The towers had 84 fans to create an airflow system within the tunnels, which allowed fresh air to come in and exhaust to be blown out. If the Holland Tunnel were to be built today, the method used could be the Immersed Tube Tunnel, or ITT. ITTs are assembled above ground with concrete and steel in tunnel segments. This gigantic concrete mold cures and then becomes the tunnel's walls, floors, and ceiling. The immersion pontoons are used to haul the mold to pre-dug trenches. Each tunnel segment is flooded just enough to allow it to sink. Cranes are used to lower the molds into the trenches, and deep-sea divers guide it to GPS coordinates. Rubber pieces are then used to connect the tube segments. The labor would have to be trained and licensed and have to be skilled to use the specialized technology. Labor requirements would be minimized with the advancement in machinery and method used, and the accident and death rate would dramatically decrease. Labor costs would increase due to the skills required. Since the trench would be pre-dug underwater and the tunnel segments dropped down, there would be no need to dispose of the mud, rock, and sand.